Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Tonight on Our News, the debate over COVID-positive voters rages on. COVID-19 hospitalizations hit a new record. The PM rallies behind Adrian Gibson, and the Rev Media poll reveals top voter concerns. Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, days before thousands of voters head to the polls, the Minnis administration has yet to state its position on quarantined and COVID-positive voters. Health Minister Renward Wells says health officials have recommended that the 6,000 people who fall into that category should not be allowed to vote. Jasmine Brown reports.
It's still under discussion, but I can say that the health professionals in the Ministry of Health, the ones who basically make recommendations, are recommending to the government that these persons not be allowed to vote.
The health minister addressed the matter outside cabinet, telling reporters the government is looking at ways to accommodate quarantined and COVID-positive voters. He added that an announcement on the matter will be made soon.
The government has come back and says, but if we do allow them to vote, give us an idea as to how best this can take place. The law, interestingly enough, the Parliamentary Act, I believe, allows for the creation of a space or a place for those infirmed, something along those lines, if I remember correctly. So we are looking at ways to see how it is possible.
If the government takes that advice, such a decision could impact up to 6,400 people, says Wells. On Monday, the Progressive Liberal Party threatened legal action if quarantined individuals are prevented from voting in the general election. National Security Minister Marvin Dames says he's not worried.
I'm not going to get into the political posturing today. I'm not going to get into the back and forth with the Progressive Liberal Party. They've been saying a lot of things that's not making much sense to me. Deliberations
on whether such voters will be accommodated on Election Day comes as the Bahamas continues to see a surge in COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. Just over 19,000 COVID cases have been confirmed in the Bahamas since March 2020. It is unclear how many COVID-positive individuals are registered to vote.
Currently in the country, we have about some 3,408 active cases of COVID. That means those are folks who are still positive. They're not hospitalized, but they're positive with COVID. 3,408. We have in quarantine approximately somewhere around 3,000 or so. I still need to get the defined number. In addition to the positive cases. And so, but the government is looking at this. We understand the issues of the constitutionality of folks wanting to exercise their rights, and so a discussion is going to be had.
Now, both ministers say the final decision will be up to cabinet, and they insist whatever that decision is, it will be one that they think is for the Bahamian people. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And the Bahamas has recorded the highest number of hospitalizations since the start of the pandemic. According to the latest Ministry of Health COVID dashboard, 190 people are in hospital with COVID-19.
We are challenged, but we are looking at a quick and rapid way to deploy beds if needed. We have some tents that was donated to us by the United States government that can be very quickly augmented to be able to assist in whether it's hurricane, natural disasters, emergency, or in pandemics, that we can outfit them very quickly to be medical facilities. Obviously, we're looking at, because in this particular instance, those tents, they do not have negative air pressure, so the engineers are looking as to how we can get negative air pressures inside of those tents.
An additional 7 deaths were reported on Monday. This drove the COVID-19 death toll to 453. More than 130 deaths have been confirmed in the last month alone. However, Health Minister Renward Wells is optimistic.
There's usually an up and down circumstance taking place now. Some days you see it's below 100, and some days it's above. But we are looking at a potential downward trend, and hopefully it continues in that direction.
Meanwhile, the record number of COVID hospitalizations has increased the burden on public and private healthcare facilities. The Doctors Hospital CEO says more people are getting severely ill and dying. Jillian Gray has that.
The numbers of COVID patients continue to increase. The severity is also unrelenting. Unfortunately, more and more patients are not surviving.
It's a grim reality coming from Doctors Hospital CEO Dr. Charles Diggis. Nearly 40% of COVID patients are becoming severely ill, with their condition escalating quickly.
The ventilator situation gets better, unfortunately, because as patients lose their battle with COVID, ventilated patients, then obviously ventilators become available. And proportionately, more patients are severe, and by extension, proportionately more patients are requiring ventilation, and by extension, more patients, unfortunately, are dying compared to previous waves or surges.
Another 7 deaths were recorded on New Providence. A man died on August 29th, 4 people died on September 2nd, and 2 women died September 3rd. The deceased range in age from 45 to 66 years old. Hospitalizations are also up to a record 191 COVID patients. Over on Grand Bahama, 21 COVID cases are hospitalized.
We're noticing the trend where it's going up significantly, leveling off a bit, decreasing, and then going right back up. And these seems to coincide with events that are happening in the community.
Dr. Diggis agrees that gatherings during this third wave is risky behavior, and said within 2 weeks we will see whether the recent political gatherings have made a bad situation worse.
It's difficult to disconnect the possibility of super spreader from any socialization event like that. We will know in about 10 or 14 days exactly what the behavior of the virus has been, and whether it has used opportunities like these to create another surge in disease.
As for Williams, she says they do have enough equipment to treat patients, but that could quickly change if people continue to ignore safety protocols. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Shifting gears amid controversy surrounding the award of water and sewage contracts, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis reaffirming his support for Long Island MP Adrian Gibson. During a drive-in rally on Long Island last night, Minnis told residents that Gibson has been doing an excellent job for them. Kyle Joaquin reports.
Get out and woo, woo. Come on, get out and vote. And praise God.
It was more like a down-home party at the FNM's drive-in rally in Salt Pond, Long Island last night.
Long Island sending Adrian back, let me set the horns.
But the night was centered on the island's MP, Adrian Gibson, and the questionable awarding of WSC contracts. Gibson has yet to confirm his connection to the woman who received the contract worth hundreds of thousands, though her name is exactly the same as the woman he named as his fiancée in a 2020 police report. Though he has yet to address the matter, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis went on record declaring his support for Gibson as the island's MP, saying he's done a good job.
Adrian has done an excellent job for you and a good job for the country. He is a hard worker who has accomplished so much for Long Island during this term in office.
Gibson is being credited with facilitating running water through some parts of the island, a promise made to those residents for decades. In addition, plans for an international airport. The FNM MP has failed to answer several questions about the award of WSC contracts, but he addressed calls for his resignation and what he called gangster tactics by the PLP.
On Friday past, they then hired a rental crowd and dropped them in several buses in front of the Water and Sewage Corporation. I understand they were paid $100 and $200 each to hold placards and protest me. How crazy is that? So all I see is the PLP lying and following me. They're running a campaign where they fling mud at the wall and see what sticks.
Now, as you can see just behind me, the stage is set as the FNM returns here to Nassau for yet another drive-in rally here on the Carnival grounds. For now, I'm Kyle Joaquin, Our News.
Meanwhile, a Rev Media poll has revealed the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic is the top concern for voters as they prepare to head to the polls. However, the FNM remains ahead with a 4% lead over the Progressive Liberal Party. Kyle Joaquin has more.
With the general election just 9 days away, there are constant changes in the polls as more and more Bahamians make up their minds as to who they're going to vote for. The government's actions over the past year and a half top the list for the 1,210 respondents of the poll. When asked to rank what's influencing their vote, government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic tops the list. Could be a blessing or a curse for the governing Free National Movement, despite Prime Minister Minnis centering his campaign around who the people want to lead the country out of the pandemic. Second on that list, government's handling of Hurricane Dorian, followed by the economy and employment. Government transparency also up there at number 7, with crime not so high on the list of priorities for voters at number 8. Still, overall, the FNM leads the pack with 32% when respondents were asked how they would vote if an election was held today. The PLP, led by Philip Davis, closely behind with 28%. Then there are the undecided voters, a big factor in this year's general election. 19% still undecided how they would vote, while 10% are supporting independent candidates. 7% are sure they're not voting at all, while 3% would support the DNA. When asked if they feel the country is headed in the right direction, 67% of the 1,200 respondents said no, while 33% said yes. When it comes to leadership and how confident voters are in their options, Minnis leads the pack with a rating of 43 out of 100. Davis trails with a rating of 34.6%, followed by the DNA's Arinthia Komalafe with 23.69%. But with the country tied in the grips of a third wave of COVID-19 cases, just how afraid are some people of heading to the polls to cast their ballot? The poll shows 40% say the pandemic definitely won't keep them from going, while 10% say it definitely will. Overall, 57% of respondents say they are very likely to go out and vote, while 19% say it is very unlikely. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Partly sunny skies today. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the latest.
Thanks, Christina. Another warm and muggy day around the islands. Temperatures in the low to mid 80s. We had some showers around the area. We're right now at 83 degrees outside our studios, partly cloudy skies. The winds are variable at 3 knots and it feels like temperatures still in the mid to upper 80s. Satellite view, a lot of moisture still around, but most of it pulling to the east, but enough hanging around the northwest Bahamas for some showers and isolated thunderstorms. Things are quieting down, but we could see 1 or 2 more of those showers later on tonight. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, is Exuma rolling red this time around? And a former political rival comes to the PM's defense. The details when Our News returns.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Before hitting Long Island, the Prime Minister and other FNM members stopped in Exuma, where the party rallied behind its candidate Jennifer Isaacs-Dotson, who's taken on the mammoth task of trying to unseat PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper. Isaacs-Dotson made her case for why voters should add the Exumas and Ragged Island seat to the FNM's win column.
The PLP promised and talked about constructing a highway. Well, you all know what happened. Well, guess who had to do it? The Minnis-led government got it done, and with more to come. These smooth roads you see here, once I'm elected, we will see even greater.
Meanwhile, Dr. Minnis once again making his plea to voters.
You tell them that they are voting for our after-school programs so that our students and our citizens can be healthy, so that our hospitals can now work and our physicians no longer stressed.
And former DNA leader Granville McCartney says Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis did the best he could handling the COVID-19 pandemic in the country. Jared Higgs reports.
Dr. Minnis did the best he could do in the circumstances.
Stopping short of endorsing Dr. Minnis' leadership, McCartney declared that no other Prime Minister could fathom the challenges Dr. Minnis faced as Prime Minister.
Like any other administration, there would have been some, mishaps, but that would have happened under any administration. So I think Dr. Minnis did what he had to do.
McCartney's view on Minnis' handling of the pandemic stands in contrast with those of his critics, who say the mistakes that were made were avoidable and that preferential treatment was shown to foreigners and wealthy Bahamians when it came to enforcing pandemic rules. Former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram wouldn't comment when asked his thoughts on the next election, but he did tell reporters that the current state of the hospital distressed him and he didn't think it had to be that way. But McCartney says Minnis isn't to blame for it.
I wouldn't put that at the fault of this administration, because that hospital or the healthcare system has been like that for many, 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 many years.
McCartney was also asked what he thought of PLP leader Philip Davis as a potential Prime Minister.
I think he's a good man. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to wait and see if he gets there, how he operates as a Prime Minister.
McCartney was a cabinet minister in the last Ingram-led FNM administration before forming the Democratic National Alliance. He led that party through 2 election cycles where they failed to win a seat. As far as this election is concerned, McCartney says whoever wins will be unpopular within 6 months to a year.
Put aside all of the flowery speeches and stuff and really look to see who, at the end of the day, is going to be able to handle this economy come the 17th of September.
Reporting for Our News, I am Jared Higgs.
When Our News returns, why one expert says successive governments have failed the environment, and the national basketball team ready for the world qualifiers. Find out more after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is Our News. Welcome back. Successive governments have failed to recognize the role the environment plays in keeping our economy going, according to one environmentalist who says we must do a better job of taking care of it.
Ultimately, we depend on the environment, whether we've accepted that or not. The environment is our business. Tourism is our main industry. Tourists don't come here because we have nicely paved roads, which we don't, but they come here because the images we show them of our country are these magnificent, pristine places.
In the 2017 speech from the throne, the Minnis-led government pledged to enable a clean environment for daily living and to develop and protect our surroundings for future generations. However, Re-Earth Executive Director Sam Duncombe says successive governments have fallen down on those commitments.
Every government, not just this one, has failed to recognize that the environment is our business. As such, we need to make sure that we look after it.
This as the Bahamas is at particular risk of climate change, with rising sea levels, ocean temperatures, and particularly active hurricane seasons.
In a country where 85% of the land is 5 feet or less above seawater, that's a major problem for us. So we've already seen more hurricanes as have been predicted decades from scientists who study the climate. As governments fail to address those significant issues that impact, the future of mankind, realistically, it's very disheartening to see so little being done.
Duncombe says it is now time for the Bahamas government to take responsibility and action to change the country's trajectory. And from sports, the national basketball team confident about the world qualifiers. Marcellus Hall has more tonight in sports.
Thanks a lot and welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. If you're wondering about the picture in the background, it's one of our members of the Bahamas national basketball team. Why that's important is because the qualification process for the upcoming World Basketball Championships in 2022 have already begun, or they will begin later on this year. The Bahamas already has the draw process underway and is now just a matter of waiting. Team Bahamas confident about moving forward. The official draw for the qualifying for Bahamas Basketball's World Cup has taken place. Team Bahamas has been placed in Group C along with Canada, Dominican Republic, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The first set of games scheduled for late November. Team member Travis Munnings, while appearing on the locker room, discussed the team's potential as they move forward.
I feel like whenever we get an opportunity to really put all the guys together, I think we have a great chance of making a big run, you know, because most of the time it just be like one or two of us that actually really goes instead of actually having a need, you know, Kai, Buddy, Aiden, and the rest of the guys that really can make a push and really can play with the best people, the best against the world. So I think when we get an opportunity to come together and really like practice and get that chemistry down, we can really make some noise.
The first matchup for the Bahamas will be a two-game set versus Team Canada. That comes your way on November 26th and then again on November 29th. And there it is, your check on sports for you here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Thanks, Marcellus. Up next, rainy conditions canceling tonight's FNM Rally. Greg has the extended forecast after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Scattered showers move in. There may even be rain at the advanced pole. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the details.
Thanks again, Christina. Welcome back, everybody, for your second look at weather. Still tracking the tropics. We have two systems we were watching. That broad area of low pressure in the Gulf of Mexico. Showers and thunderstorms trying to get its act together. National Hurricane Center bumping its chance for formation up to 40%. Will move towards the north and approach the Florida Panhandle. Moisture from that system will continue to spread across portions of the Bahamas with that upper level low spinning east of us. That's going to enhance some showers and thunderstorms over the next couple of days. Of course, we're still watching powerful Larry, which is Category 3 storm moving towards the northwest at around 9 miles per hour. Should pass just to the east of Bermuda over the course of the next couple of days. From tonight through the rest of the week, we expect some very large swells to start affecting those islands, and that will affect our boating conditions. Speaking of boating, forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight to tomorrow. Southeast to south winds 10 knots. Seas will be up to 6 feet and some swells. In the southeast Bahamas, more up to 7 feet along the eastern shoreline, so do exercise some caution. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Sunday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody. Back to Christina.
Thanks, Greg, and thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. Tonight's scheduled broadcast of the FNM Rally has been canceled due to inclement weather, but stay tuned for the rebroadcast of Surviving Dorian. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.